let's make some homemade egg noodles. I feel like noodles and just pasta in general is one of those recipes that feel very complicated, but in reality is very simple to make and really elevates your cooking and just makes the meal totally different and more complex. Once you make your own homemade egg noodles, you will not want store-bought again because these are so simple, come together in less than 15 minutes, and will make your soups so comforting this fall and winter. For just a regular batch of soup, all that is required is 1 egg in a mixing bowl with half of an eggshell of water, which if you break your eggshell, don't worry, that's about 4 teaspoons, a little sprinkle of salt, and then just enough flour until your dough starts to kind of combine together and isn't sticky anymore. So for me, this was just maybe less than a full cup. I added about 1/3 of a cup at a time, mixed it in well, kneaded it, and in the end, it ended up being about a cup. This recipe is very nostalgic for me as well. My mom would always make these noodles anytime she made a soup that had noodles, like chicken noodle soup or beef stew. And it was always so comforting, and they just have such a nice chew to them that I can't really describe it. But overall, they're one of my favorite things in soups, and definitely just take your soup to the next level. Especially when you are sick, this definitely kind of brings that warm, cozy feeling and is just so healing, I suppose. Once you have completely kneaded your dough and it is no longer sticky to the touch when you are kneading it, go ahead and flour whatever surface you're going to roll it out on. And sometimes you might need to flip it a few times, kind of like I'm doing here, just to really try to spread that flour out and prevent your noodle from sticking to the best of your ability. This is a very elastic dough, if that's the word I'm looking for, whereas it really wants to kind of pull back onto itself. So it does take just the tiniest bit of elbow grease to get it to actually start to stretch out, but try to get it as thin as you can because it will kind of pull back onto itself like it was doing when I was rolling it out. Now, the best way to cut this, in my opinion, is a pizza cutter, but a sharp knife is easy enough as well. But you're going to go ahead and just make some thin strips once you get your dough as thin as you can, and really kind of just cut them into some rough little noodle shapes. I like my noodles a little bit shorter. If you wanted, you could definitely leave them long, but I think it's a little easier to eat in this length. Now, you can prepare these noodles in advance to making your soup. My perfect situation for preparing these is about an hour before I cook the soup, and that just allows it a little bit of time to dry and set, but that's definitely not needed if you need to make them quick before your soup goes. By the time that you kind of get your soup up to a boil, they'll probably have dried enough anyway for you to add them in. So don't worry about it if you don't have a really good chunk of time to prep them in the beginning. You can kind of whip them up right before you start cooking and it will be also okay. You could also make a big batch of these and put them in the freezer and then pop them out when you need them. But once you get them all cut and unstuck from whatever rolling surface you had them on, which even though I floured very well, it did stick a little bit, toss them in a little flour and lay them all out separate to dry. If you leave them all in a clump, they will all form a clump together and it'll be impossible to separate. Now, that is all that you need for your egg noodles, and then mix your soup. So once an hour or so has passed, or even once you just kind of get those prepped, you can begin making your soup. I'm going to be making very classic chicken noodle soup, and there's something so simple about this recipe, but also very delicious, very healing when you're sick. Start off with a good chicken broth, and then I'm adding celery and carrots, and then I already had some cooked chicken from the day prior, and I'm just going to be shredding this and adding that into my chicken broth. You could go an extra step further and cook a whole chicken in some water and use that as your chicken broth and chicken combo. I wanted something a little faster tonight, again, since I wasn't feeling amazing, so I just went with some chicken that I already had cooked. And then it's really just 3 simple seasonings: salt, pepper, and I think the magic here is really that celery salt. It adds such amazing flavor that gives the chicken noodle soup something very unique. Now you're going to get all of this up to a boil or simmer. You just want some of those bubbles moving your liquid around, and then that's when you're going to start adding in your noodles. You don't want to add them all in at the same time. Otherwise, again, they will stick together, and you want them to kind of be at that low boil so that it kind of moves them around, torpedoes them a little bit, so that they don't all form a clump. Then you can just kind of cover this and let this cook on medium heat for about 20 minutes or until your carrots are nice and tender and poke through and the noodles are cooked. This soup comes together so beautifully and is so delicious and just makes for the perfect soup when you're not feeling amazing. I hope you guys give these egg noodles a try. Let me know in the comments if you do. Let me know if you have any questions as well. Thank you so much for watching it, and I hope to see you in the next video.